Welcome to Ukraine, a land of interesting ideologies, beautiful landscapes, and 2,600 square kilometers of radioactive wasteland. In 1986, Reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear plant had a meltdown, forcing surrounding area to be evacuated. Traces of radiation were found across Europe, and it shifted public belief against nuclear power. For such a significant event, it makes sense as being relatively little media produced about it. There was an HBO series which caused a bunch of influencers to start taking selfies around irradiated vehicles, and that one COD 4 mission where you follow a guy around for 50 minutes. Today, I want to talk about a 2007 video game set in this region, S.T.A.L.K.E.R, Shadow of Chernobyl. It's a game that has quite a bit of a reputation, both as a hardcore shooter and as a horror game. It's 16 years old now, though I'd argue, especially considering the current state of AAA games.
Are you sure about that?
It's worth playing today. The Chernobyl zone in S.T.A.L.K.E.R is based on the 1971 Soviet novel Roadside Picnic. It's a short book, at only 180 pages, though this means your average Zoomer mind might be able to enjoy it. Roadside Picnic is the direct inspiration for lots of S.T.A.L.K.E.R, including the term S.T.A.L.K.E.R itself. A film by famous Soviet filmmaker Tarkovsky was also made.
Зачем вы? Что зачем? Зачем вы его остановили? Как? Я думал, это вы.
The same core idea is present in all three. There's an isolated zone with strange anomalies and a wish granter. It's a good idea to view them like the Holy Trinity. They aren't the same as each other, but they're all S.T.A.L.K.E.R. The game itself is set in 2012 Chernobyl, following a second disaster in 2006. The second disaster is a lot more mysterious than the first, creating fractures in the fabric of reality. No one knows how it occurred, but the trading valuable artifacts created by the zone has caused a new economy to emerge. There are various factions, each with different goals and interests, trying to survive in the zone. You are a S.T.A.L.K.E.R, a random nobody here to find and sell artifacts. Now that I've established the deep and complex backstory of S.T.A.L.K.E.R, we can surely get to the gameplay, right? Well, S.T.A.L.K.E.R isn't exactly a stable game. Sometimes, like here, the bugs are harmless and can help you, but other times objectives can get messed up. When you combine that with the already delicate scripting, the game can sometimes just give up. Luckily, this game has an extremely dedicated modding community. This has led to the release of the Zone Reclamation project. It contains a multitude of bug fixes, quality of life add-ons, and optional scripts to enhance the game. Since we have a mod like this with basically no downsides that fixes all the major issues with the game, obviously, I didn't play with it for this video. Also, don't get the complete mod, unless you're an IGN game journalist, in which case I highly recommend it. Finally, I can actually talk about the game. S.T.A.L.K.E.R is an open world hardcore shooter with RPG and survival horror elements. The game opens with us getting orbital strikes and put in debt to the trader Sidorovic. The pre-rendered cutscenes have aged pretty well and have some nice visual effects. We then get a job to kill the Straylock. This will be our main goal throughout the game. Now, one of the first things you'll notice about S.T.A.L.K.E.R is the interesting controls. You may want to rebind some of these. The game also has basically no tutorial. You get told how to use your PDA.
Your tasks can be found in the first section of the... Most tasks have buttons which allow you to access additional information.
And the game shows you a few paragraphs that disappear in a few seconds. After that, you're on your own. Coupled with this, the game has lots of mechanics that may be unfamiliar even to an intelligent gamer such as yourself. For a start, the gunplay is completely scuffed. Bullets are actual projectiles, meaning they have travel time, drop over distance, and can ricochet. Sounds good so far. However, there's also random bullet deviation even while aiming down sights. Lower condition weapons have less accuracy and jam more often. Double crouching while shooting makes your gun significantly more accurate. The previously mentioned weird controls mean that most people don't even know this is a feature. Lastly, there's different ammunition types for different targets. You can use armor piercing ammunition, which is more expensive but better against heavy targets. All of this combines to make a system where a new player will have no idea why they're not hitting any of the shots. You get a Makarov pistol at the start of the game, which was only ever designed to help critics of the Russian regime commit suicide by 3 shots to the back of the head. Therefore, it's completely useless in actual combat. There's also a myth that the higher the difficulty, the quicker both the player and enemies die. It's completely untrue, but it is pretty funny that it stuck around for so long. If you can get past all this, you'll find that combat in Stalker is great. The AI is smart and will flank you and suppress your last known position. Holding a point and leaning around corners is more useful than having a good aim. You can also use the environment to your advantage, like luring enemies towards roaming mutants or trapping them in anomalies. As for the weapons, there's pretty good variety. The devs decided to avoid adding weapons that were extremely common in other games, like AK-47s and M4s.
AK-47s for everyone!
Instead, they went for more unknown weapons like the folding stock AK-74, the LR-300, the Groza and the F-2000. However, the game has some issues with variety in certain areas. There are 8 pistols, but only 1 submachine gun and only 3 shotguns. This wouldn't be so bad if pistols weren't completely useless. Aside from the deagle. The animations are also a little basic, using the same sounds for every single reload. The guns are also mirrored, since the devs thought it'd be cooler to see spent cartridges fly across the screen. Weapons are fun to use overall though, especially when you get to the juicy good, late game stuff. As a side note, I love how the RPG works in Stalker. It's completely unrealistic in its flight and it's too heavy to be practical, yet it's one of the few games that actually shows the propellant charge during the reload animation. Smoothly transitioning, let's talk about RPG elements. The first mission has you free Nimble from prison in order to get a flash drive from him which you can give to Sid. You can free him and get a reward for doing so, along with making a quest available that he gives you, or you can sneak in, kill him, and take the flash drive from his corpse. There aren't any fail states in the game where if you do something a different way, you have to restart. Take notes, Rockstar. Every NPC can be spoken with and traded with, though some will obviously have more to say than others. The game isn't quite an RPG or a 451 game, but it gets close enough to make the world engaging and reactive. For example, I got a mission to retrieve a grenade launcher for the duty faction leader. This tells me to go to the Freedom base and steal it. But earlier, I had found this exact grenade launcher elsewhere and had stashed it away. I brought it in, and the quest was completed even though I hadn't followed any of the objectives. Every NPC, aside from certain traders, can be killed, even if that means missing out on quests. You can permanently destroy your relationship with every major faction and still beat the game. You hear stories and rumours from other stalkers, many of which are misinformation. This is the leading cause of people being confused by the story and lore. Many people have an interpretation of Stalker that it's an ultra-realistic survival game. In reality, the survival elements are limited. Hunger is present in the game, though I didn't know it was a feature until my second playthrough, which says a lot about how important it is. Radiation is more of an issue. It can kill you in seconds if not treated with either anti-rads or vodka. Vodka cures less radiation and makes your screen shake, but is cheaper and funnier. Despite lacking things like crafting, building and more complex health mechanics, I still believe Stalker is a survival game at its core, at least in the European sense of the word. You have limited resources, in a world full of things that want to kill you and a bleak atmosphere. Avoiding a fight is often worth more than winning one, especially in the broke hobo phase of the game. So how would you avoid a fight? Stealth. On the surface, Stalker has an interesting stealth system. It's sound based, so you need to limit reloads and running to stay undetected. However, reloading a save usually makes enemies detect you. This makes the whole system basically non-viable unless you're really good, like me. Letting your own allies die is often worthwhile, especially if you can get loot from their corpses or stash locations from their PDAs. You buy new gear from traders and sell loot to them as well. However, they're all complete scammers.
You're broke! You're fucking poor!
When you buy an item from them, it costs 10 times more than if you sold it to them. Each trader is different, with some being more interested in certain items than others. For example, Professor Sakharov will buy artifacts from you at a much higher price than other traders. You can take out side quests from NPCs, which for the most part are just fetch quests or assassination missions. These are only really worth doing if you're short on cash or if you have that
100% completionist mindset.
There are several good side quests. I consider faction missions spoiler territory, so you'll have to wait for those. The arena quest line is one of the better bits of side content. You can agree to enter Bloodsport in Rostock and you proceed through various battles. If you've played Oblivion, it's very similar to the arena in that game, the main similarity being that they're both broken. The battles range from killing a squad of bandits to taking down an exoskeleton soldier with grenades only. The final is a 4-man battle royale. It should be a tense culmination of everything that's come up to this point in the arena battles, but the game spawns all the enemies together. This means they tend to just kill each other, allowing for an easy victory. It's still a pretty good way of making money in the mid-game. Your inventory is weight-based rather than space-based. Carry as much as you want, just don't expect to be able to move. This makes for a much more interesting system than other games. Ammo, meds, food, weapons, and suits all contribute to the carry weight. The weight limit being so low forces you to actually consider what to bring with you and what to store away. This is also great for connecting the player with the world. Throughout the maps you can find stashes of equipment that other stalkers stored away to pick up later. Having the player need to do the same thing through their own gameplay makes their actions feel more realistic, and makes the player feel less separated from the NPCs. Artifacts offer various effects on the player if attached to their belt. Some, like the Moonlight, offer excellent benefits like infinite sprint. Others, like the Stoneblood, are engineered to troll people who read. The text on the artifact says plus 200% health. You'd think that an artifact that doubles your health at the cost of having 10% less damage resistance is a great trade-off. However, it increases health regen rather than actual health, so stacking multiple means you'll die incredibly quickly. Better to just sell them. Artifacts hunting ranges from having to navigate dangerous fields of anomalies to just seeing them out in the open and picking them up. The mutants should have really gone in the combat segment, but they're more part of the environment than anything. The AI for mutants is very interesting. They hunt, eat, flee, and move across the entire map. The last part is especially important. Stalker wouldn't be nearly as scary if mutants could only spawn in certain areas and were locked to them. You can encounter dangerous mutants in early areas if you're unlucky. The design of the mutants themselves is interesting as well. Fallout follows a 1950s classic style of just scaling up existing animals. Metro just takes high-resolution scans of actual Russian men. Stalker's mutants are a combination of creatures twisted by radiation and anomalies, and lab-grown bioweapons. There's a good deal of variety in their behaviour too. Pseudo-dogs can often be seen leading groups of blind dogs, and blind dogs may flee when the pseudo-dog dies. Bloodsuckers can turn invisible, making them jump scare machines. Pseudo-giants are just fat. Controllers can yank around your brain and emit a noise so high-pitched it kills 30% of the people who make it to Agroprom.
You hear that ringing in your ears, son?
Snorks are mostly harmless until they start breakdancing. Poltergeists turn random boxes into your enemy.
I just move shit with my freaking mind!
and fleshes and boars exist solely for side missions. Another thing that makes Stalker great is its visuals and audio. The texture work is generally good, aside from the faces, which is why they're mostly obscured by gas masks. The lighting is what really carries the visuals, however. There are tons of dynamic light sources, from campfires to gunshots. Like most things in Stalker, the lighting feeds into gameplay as well. Turning on your torch illuminates the area in front of you, but boosts enemy accuracy. Maybe you want to use night vision instead, but higher quality night vision is expensive. The weather effects and skyboxes also look excellent. The lightning effects are superb, and yet again affect gameplay. Want that cool artifact that gives you infinite stamina? Better wait for a thunderstorm, since that's the only time it appears. The aesthetic choices also make the world a lot more interesting. You'll see Soviet murals next to heads on sticks in a village full of lab experiments. The same goes for audio design. English voice acting isn't great, but it has a charm to it.
Get out of here, Stalker! Get out of here, Stalker!
The environmental sounds are amazing, however. The devs made the right choice sacrificing character visuals and audio for environmental visuals and audio. Music consists entirely of atmospheric tracks. Vladimir Frey composed the soundtrack and did a great job of conveying the feeling of a dark, alien zone. Stalker is an open world game, but it does it differently to other games. The game consists of 10 separate levels, split by loading screens.
We really do push the technology, so you may need to upgrade your PC for this game.
The main story will lead you through each area, but you're free to explore from the start. As you progress, you go further north. You start in the rural cordon, exploring its abandoned villages, and end in the Chernobyl power plant itself. Some areas, like the Dark Valley, you might only pass through once, while others like Rostock are key hubs. When you first enter some areas, they have a scripted sequence to introduce them, like a helicopter crash.
Now you've done it, Walker. The military chopper is coming to blow you to pieces.
A few moments later.
There goes your chopper. You're next, you political scumbags.
Unlike in many games, going off the beaten path in Stalker is not advised. You won't find treasure behind that waterfall, just some gopniks and kielbasa. I mean, what do you think this is? Zelda? Any loot you do find is worth it though. There is a good deal of verticality built into the maps, allowing you to use the insane sprint speed to make big jumps. Vehicles were originally meant to be in the game, but were scrapped near the end of development. To compensate for this, your character acts like a Titanfall pilot and can traverse the map very quickly. Throughout the game, you'll have to explore underground labs to progress. I'm fairly confident Tarkov stole this idea from Stalker, only in Tarkov the fear stems from getting one-tapped by an exit camper. Stalker's labs immediately feel off. No music, just sounds that are hard to identify. That might just be a lamp squeaking. Or it might be an abomination. "12-year-old me was terrified going through Agroprom for the first time. I just sat waiting in a corner for 15 minutes, too scared to go on. Now, older and wiser, I can identify some problems with the labs. Unlike the rest of the game, the labs are heavily scripted. This was done tactfully in most labs, but X16 does have some visible spawn-ins. The scripted nature of the labs reduces replayability, which is one of Stalker's main strengths, but does make it more effective on a first playthrough. All of this contributes to Stalker's biggest strength, its atmosphere. You feel isolated, yet weirdly at home in Stalker. The world is cruel. When you die, the game cuts to a third-person perspective, and you can stay there as long as you want. You aren't the centre of the universe, life goes on without you. The world being so harsh makes you feel even better when you get to a campfire surrounded by loners. Or relax to the calming melody in the bar.
Why did I bother?
Even Sid's bunker is a welcome respite.
More valuable than this. Not bad. Some pretty good stuff you've got there.
Before I get to the story, I should point out that the experience does fall off a bit in the last 2 hours. Compared to the open freeform gameplay I've shown, the last 2 areas are mostly linear. Pripyat can be explored, but there isn't a great deal to find. It doesn't bother me now, but when I first played the game I had basically no supplies in this segment.
I am once again asking for your financial support.
Barkeep says that if you're quick enough you can reach some veterans who'll lead you through Pripyat, so I ran off with little ammo and had to slog through the entire segment. Worst part is that you don't even have to rush. The soldiers don't care how long it takes you to reach Pripyat, so make sure to restock, as once you go into Chernobyl there's no going back. The power plant is full of more enemies than you've encountered anywhere else, but only 2 mutants. Remember all the cool enemies I talked about earlier? Yeah, they're just gone now. I hope you like getting one tap going down a corridor, because that's all you're going to get in this segment. The outside is pretty cool. Helicopters, a 2-way fight between Monolith and the military, and a massive energy storm. This was pre-COD 4, so set pieces like this would have been much more impressive back then. You also get some new toys in this segment, including my favourite weapon in any game, a railgun. It is just sloppy gameplay, and it's a shame since the story wraps up very well at the end. I feel I've now covered most of Stalker's core gameplay. Granted, there's stuff I've skipped like unique weapons and PDA functions, but this is the stepping off point for people who don't want spoilers. You can pick the game up from Steam and GOG for low prices, and it goes on sale very often. Now, as for the story. What we know from the start is that Marked 1 was on a death truck. These are mysterious trucks that carry corpses from the centre of the zone. We seem to be the first person to have survived this trip, as evidenced by the way Sid reacts.
Well, you know the drill. Leave him on
This is a live one.
Bullshit. You're lying.
Let the zone take me if I am.
We're an amnesiac who can't remember who he is, like every video game protagonist in the mid-2000s. Like I said earlier, our PDA's objective is to kill S.T.A.L.K.E.R, which we decide to do with no hesitation. We also have a Stalker tattoo, which is the cause of lots of confusion. A stalker is just a word meaning someone who hunts for artifacts in the zone, originating from Roadside Picnic. This is a reference to the character Stalky from Rudyard Kipling's Stalky & Co. series. The dots were added between the letters to avoid a copyright claim from the Strugatskys, Tarkovsky Institute, or even Nintendo.
Coopers!
It doesn't actually have a confirmed meaning, other than being a coded acronym, which I'll talk about soon. The actual missions we get are kind of boring. I had a long segment written, but it was mostly just talk to X-Man and find X thing. Hardly engaging viewing for the modern generation. So I'll try and summarise it. There are multiple plot threads going on at once. The Traders give you missions in the hope you'll eventually find a way to access the untapped artifact fields in the north. Mark 1 is trying to figure out who he is, while also on a mission to find and kill S.T.A.L.K.E.R. The military is trying to figure out the zone's secrets and is launching raids on various labs. Most characters you encounter have never met S.T.A.L.K.E.R, and those who have only saw him from a distance. I'm sure this won't be a major plot point. We know S.T.A.L.K.E.R is in the north, so we need to go north as well. The thing preventing us from just catching a bus up there is the Brain Scorcher. It's a modification of the Duga radar array, and it converts people into militant fanatics or mindless zombies, so we need to find a way to turn it off. Along the way, we encounter various factions we can choose to align with. By default, we are a free stalker, aka a Sigma lone wolf Ryan Gosling. Loners are generally good to each other, but some do have malicious intent.
Piss off while you're still alive. Piss off.
Bandits are generic delinquents who rob and raid other factions. They have the most drip out of all the groups. But trenchcoats struggle stopping bullets, not a threat by the mid-game. Mercenaries are paid killers. They're just bandits with slightly better gear and confined to a couple of areas. That doesn't stop people from thinking they're tactical Western operators, even though they speak regular Russian. They're making schizo troll-faced fonk edits of them. The military are responsible for making sure nothing gets in or out of the zone. They do a terrible job at this, as it only costs 500 rubles to make them look the other way. They've also launched various massive operations into the zone, each one ending in complete failure. The main ideological conflict between factions comes from duty and freedom. Duty consists of former soldiers who see the zone as dangerous and needing destruction. They're heavily militarized and have a very effective ad campaign.
Deadly anomalies, dangerous mutants, anarchists, and bandits. None of them will stop duty on its triumphant march towards saving the planet.
Meanwhile, freedom see the zone as a gift to humanity with its various useful artifacts. They're very laid back and attract some odd people to their ranks. The two factions are in an uneasy ceasefire when you first meet them. There is a rogue duty squad named Silence that's planning on launching a raid on the Freedom base. You can help them or report them to Freedom. Joining them is the more fun option, as it's the game's most detailed side quest. Take out snipers, breach the outer wall, and kill the leader of Freedom. You can also do missions for duty's General Voronin. These aren't very interesting, but they do net you a VSS, arguably the best gun in the game. The Ecologists are also a faction, aka literally two guys. They're government-funded researchers interested in the zone's phenomena. They had a squad at the start, but got wiped out by the mercenaries. Now, Kruglov gets gaslighted by Sakharov into embarking on various comically dangerous research missions.
Hey Kruglov, we need research data for my experiments.
Okay, Professor Sakharov, it shouldn't be too bad.
2 minutes later.
Shit! Imminent blowout! Run, Mark 1!
We get a psi helmet from the Professor, which allows us to get to the Brain Scorcher unharmed. His quests seem unskippable, but once you have the psi helmet, you can ignore them completely if you want. The last faction is Monolith. They worship the magical rock in the Chernobyl sarcophagus called the Monolith. Most stalkers know it as the Wish Granter, which they believe will grant any wish they want. People say that every time you make a wish, the zone grows 5 kilometers. Monolith troops are fanatical and equipped with the best weapons in the zone. They are brainwashed, but still have some personality. Returning to the main plot, Mark 1 receives various visions or flashbacks throughout the game. It's unclear exactly what's going on, but we do see S.T.A.L.K.E.R a lot. The fact that we even see these visions of S.T.A.L.K.E.R hints at our true identity. If you have over 300 IQ, you may have figured out the complex reveal by now. Once we disable the Brain Scorcher, we get a vision of the Wish Granter calling us. Head north through Pripyat, the nuclear power plant, and into the sarcophagus. We fight hordes of monolith, clearly intent on stopping us. We stand before the wish granter and make a wish.
I want to be rich.
Yeah, the wishes are all monkey's paw type. There are 5 different wishes your character will make, depending on your actions. None of them end well, but they do have some interesting implications. For example, wishing to rule the world absorbs you into the monolith. Monolith must rule the world then. It would explain where all the guns come from. Cruelly, if you want the zone to disappear, you'll go blind. If you think these endings feel false, you'd be right. To get the true ending, you've got to follow up on Sakharov's quests, and speak to a man named Guide, who's rumoured to be the first ever stalker. Like most characters in the game, he tells you to speak to someone else, that being Doctor in S.T.A.L.K.E.R's hiding place. Entering Agroprom for a second time, there are more bloodsuckers. A bomb goes off while we climb into the hideout entrance, but by this point in the game, Mark 1 is already geared up like he's in the Hurt Locker. Doctor seems to be the guy from our visions, and drops an exposition nuke.
What the hell are you doing, man? Have you lost your memory or something?
If you hadn't already figured it out, Mark 1 is S.T.A.L.K.E.R. How we lost our memory and wound up on that truck is unknown. What we do know is that the Wish Granter is an illusion, and we can get access to the secret lab that controls it using a decoder in Pripyat. We can find the decoder in a hotel, and if you ignore the calls of the Wish Granter, you can get access to a secret area. Slog through more monolith and find the weird hollow thingy. In the following fight, you can avoid all damage if you stay in the centre while you shoot all the thingamabobs. Then, a hologram appears, and we get some real answers. It's clear the labs we visited were responsible for some shady experiments, like the massive brain at X16. These were the work of a group named The Group. Bravo GSC, masterful writing. The accident in 1986 led to them setting up shop in the exclusion zone, as no one would investigate a highly irradiated disaster zone. The computers and other modern equipment in the labs indicate they were working all the way up until the second disaster in 2006. The group's main experiment was the Sea Consciousness Project. There was a real-life theory that above the geosphere and biosphere lay the noosphere, where consciousness exists. In S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the Sea Consciousness combined the consciousnesses of 7 volunteers to influence the noosphere. Their aim was to free the world of negative feelings, like greed or anger. But the experiment failed.
What you see is the result of ill-considered intervention in the Earth's noosphere. Attempts to affect the noosphere brought about a local crack. The zone is simply the visible manifestation of this crack. The underlying problem is far greater than you can imagine.
As a defensive measure, they set up the Brain Scorcher, to prevent people from reaching their lab in the power plant. The Wish Granter is a complete illusion, and is designed to lure stalkers away from their lab. So, how does this relate to us and the death trucks? S.T.A.L.K.E.R made it to the CNPP, then was brainwashed into becoming one of the Seacon's agents. Agents are unwillingly sent on missions to kill stalkers the Sea Consciousness sees as a threat. So, S.T.A.L.K.E.R was given a mission to eliminate himself?
Your mission as our agent was to kill S.T.A.L.K.E.R and his group. A mistake was made, and your mission was to kill yourself.
Anyway, the Stalker tattoo is just a way of designating agents, and it's never elaborated on what it stands for.
So, it's time to make a decision. Join C-Consciousness and contain the zone, or refuse. If we join C-Con, it shows S.T.A.L.K.E.R entering their suspension chamber, then cuts to Doctor remarking about where S.T.A.L.K.E.R must have got to.
Is he dead already? Although he's hardy as a cat, he should be okay, I think. But well...
It's a fine ending, and I like how it leaves things up to the imagination instead of showing S.T.A.L.K.E.R entering the noosphere.
This universe is mine. I am.
The second option sends us outside. Many people consider the following segment the hardest in the game, though I think the more open layout makes things easier to handle. We have to jump through various portals and see the game's only genuine moment of humour.
Mark 1! What the hell?
Once we reach the end, we see S.T.A.L.K.E.R enter a room. I like how he looks behind, as it emphasises how far he's come and how there's no going back. He takes a moment to relax and the game ends.
I don't know whether I was right or wrong. I guess I'll never know. But I made it. And I guess I should be thankful for that.
Overall, it's pretty solid as an ending, despite the strange plot choices. I will briefly bring up the third S.T.A.L.K.E.R game, Call of Pripyat, as it retroactively makes Shadow of Chernobyl better by adding weight to S.T.A.L.K.E.'s choice. Call of Pripyat depicts the zone as more unstable than ever. New mutants, powerful emissions and more anomalies. S.T.A.L.K.E.R destroying the C-Con destabilised the zone, yet freed people from becoming brainwashed. So you do make an actual moral choice. It's a decent plot if you like sci-fi and uncovering conspiracies, just don't go in expecting it to be heavily character driven. One thing I neglected earlier was how when S.T.A.L.K.E.R came out, there wasn't anything really like it. And not in the ways I've already described, but as in there were basically zero open world FPS games. It's hard to imagine in a post-Far Cry world. But there was a time when the only thing you could really compare S.T.A.L.K.E.R to was Oblivion. It's an influential title, with the Metro series being made by a group that offshot from GSC during the development of S.T.A.L.K.E.R. If you still need to be further sold on the game after my Yap session, Forsen hates it. If you want even more S.T.A.L.K.E.R, there's the sequels/expansions, Clear Sky and Call of Pripyat. Clear Sky is broken yet enjoyable, and it has some interesting mechanics. Call of Pripyat isn't really a true S.T.A.L.K.E.R game, which is probably why it's the best rated one. There's also plenty of standalone mods for the series. Right now, free play mods are the most popular, which let you pick out a faction and live out in the zone. These are generally more popular in the western side of the community though. They look amazing but aren't exactly balanced. So I'll recommend some story-based mods that deserve more attention. Finally, S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 is coming out next year, and it's probably the reason I might upgrade my PC. I added this bit in post since I forgot the game had a multiplayer, which about sums up how important it is. It's basically a slightly worse Counter-Strike. On the 24/7 Russian life server I played, drinking vodka teleports you randomly, which is actually very accurate to real life. Thanks to everyone who helped out on the video. Can't wait to see you all at Bohemian Grove. More videos to come on more games. The next video will probably be about the airborne terror simulator, or the financial terror simulator. If you dislike the video, or my ASMR tier mic, leave a comment and boost me to the algorithm. And make sure to watch this guy, his stuff's good. You keep stealing stuff from me, I swear.
What? What the fuck, man? That's not fair.
Where's your German simp?
He's...
Oh,
Good job, guys. The plan was yeah.
No, not our precious Omar. It couldn't be Omar. Stealing us blind. Alright, now listen, just listen here, buddy. Sorry, buddy.
It's shocking. It's not fair.
It isn't. Yes, and ironically.
You have a fucking tank shells, mate. Oh.
Yes, yes, nailed him.